Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today I thought I would go through the festive event lineups that I'll be using for each nation, just to basically get through the challenges as quick as possible. Now remember, I am a realistic player, therefore I'm going to be playing ground realistic, being able to do both the air challenges and the ground challenges all in one game mode at once. That is why it is important for me to get a proper lineup created. Now also, I have never bought a crew slot on any of my crews, so therefore we are running just a standard 5 vehicle lineup on everything, which should be completely fine. So the first one is a Powerhouse 4-7 lineup from the Americans. The M4A176W, this has some nice armor on the side due to the fact that it has some add-on armor, but the armor isn't the main pull of this. The main pull is the 76, and since this is the third vehicle that you should take out after losing your Jumbo and your M6, it is nice to have that gun, so if there is a KV running around or something with a bit more armor, you can penetrate it, you can do a lot of damage to it, you can annihilate it, and make sure to try and swing the game back to your team. But the main reason why you take this lineup is this monster. The Jumbo is one of the greatest tanks at its BR in the game, and the main reason for it is because it doesn't really have that much of a frontal weak spot. The only real weak spot it has is this little area here, and it's very, very hard to hit if you go full bushwookie mode, which is what I've done here. There's also another part that you can actually pen on the Jumbo, which is the top bit here, but if you're not firing something like APHE or APC-BC, you won't have a chance of it bouncing down and killing the turret. The survivability of the Jumbo is very good as well, and it can be a very aggressive tank, it can be a very defensive tank, and if you do get up BR'd, you also have APCR to be able to deal with some of the enemies. What is also good about the 4-7 lineup for the Americans is all of these, by the way, the lineups that I'm doing, I am going to keep premiums out of it, just because I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to get these, but I will comment on some premiums that you can add to them if you want to. The Cobra King, you know, just another Jumbo. You can replace the M6A1 with that. So yeah, that is one that you can chuck in. But after taking out your first spawn Jumbo, you should be able to get some kills, maybe, you know, you get a capture point, all of this stuff, and then you bring out the M6A1. The reason you do this is because it's a big lump, and with that 76mm, you can shoot stuff from longer ranges, and also with a bunch of the light vehicles running around 4-7 right now, especially for the Italians, you can use that 37 and do a lot of work. Once you've died in this, then obviously you get into the 76. That's basically how this works for America. On top of that, the planes that you take, P51D, I've got a Swedish camouflage on it right now. The reason why you take this bad boy is, first of all, the modifications. You can bring a bunch of secondary armaments. So you can bring HVARs, you can bring bombs, you can bring a bunch of other stuff as well. So this isn't just a fighter, this is also a ground attacker, meaning that when you bring it into battle and once you use your rockets and bombs, you can then fight on and be able to kill some enemies. The F4U1C, the reason why I pick it here is just because I personally enjoy it. I wouldn't recommend this for a lot of people just because it doesn't really suit how, you know, ground realistic works. It doesn't have any secondaries, and on top of this, it also isn't that maneuverable at low speeds. I would actually recommend something such as the P47, which you find here, the D28. So I would run that. One thing before we get on to the next lineup, I do want to show you a cool thing you can do. A lot of people have been struggling to find the achievements that you have to track, and basically, so I'll show you how to get to them. So the first thing you do is hit your nickname, second thing you do, achievement, then you go to Festive Quest, hit this little plus here, and then this is for the tankers, this is for the pilots, this is for the Christmas tree. So with the tankers one, or with all of these, what you're able to do is you can click this button here, which says add to favorites, right? And what this does is, if you do this on both of each of the challenges, you can go over here, you have this favorite achievements button, and you can keep track of them. So every 2 days when they change the Christmas toy thing, you can just track the achievements here, so you don't always have to click, and then click, and then click, and then click. Instead, you can just go, oh, that's some cool stats on my plane. bang, alright, everything's here. And obviously you can hover over it and it can tell you everything you need to know about it, including times, including everything like that. So yeah, that's just an easy way of tracking your achievements. The German lineup. So, a German lineup is 6.7. The reason for this is the Panther just got recently down-tiered, the Panther 2. This is a monster at 6.7. It was a monster at 7.0. It's got the 88 on it, one-shot machine, it's got speed behind it, it's got a bouncy front part here, and also it is incredibly hard to one-shot the Panther just because how the crew is situated. So a lot of people will hit your turret, now they might knock out 3 crew, but that doesn't knock you out of the battle. On top of this, when they hit your turret, normally they'll only take out 2 members, so you'll have 3 left, and you'll be able to fire back. So overall, the Panther is a fast Tiger 2 with a little bit less armor. And for me, once you get some upgrades on it and still use the standard round, because you'll have enough pen to absolutely annihilate anything, it's just an amazing tank. So this is the first one that you take out. On top of this, you have the Tiger 2H. Tiger 2H is not what it used to be, which was an absolute powerhouse, but it's still very strong on a second spawn. And the reason for this is because a lot of people take out their primary machine on their first spawn. So, and obviously you do as well with the Panther 2. But if you bring the Tiger 2H as a secondary spawn, the majority of people who will be left on the map will be people who are in either their second spawn vehicles, or they will have taken damage in their primary spawn vehicles, or they will be close to your spawn in their primary spawn vehicles. So, with the long 88 that you have on the Tiger 2H, plus the extra armor, you can easily deal with primary vehicles, and you can absolutely obliterate secondary vehicles as long as you're paying attention. So, overall, this is easily the best second take in any lineup that there is, just because of the extra armor gives you a big advantage over the secondaries that other nations can take. The Flak Panzer 341 is also thrown in there because it's one of the best AA in-game pound for pound when it comes to its BR. Mine isn't fully modified, but if yours is, you get some really cool rounds. The APHE round, which pens 65mm, which is overall very good. It means that you can deal with a lot of sides of vehicles, but the main thing is that you can kill enemy CAS coming in, and obviously that counts towards the 6 kills you're trying to get on the ground, which is the main achievement you should be going for. The 2 planes that I picked are the ME-262A2A and the AR 234B2. Now, the reason I picked the A2A is just to show you how ridiculous it is that you can run it with this lineup, but to be honest, since it is a gift vehicle, you can switch it with the Polk. So you can put the Polk in here, or you can put the T30 or the Focke-Wulf D. All of these up tier really well. You can throw in another ground attacker if you want, such as the DO 335 or one of the ME-410s. Just don't take the HE-162, save your sanity. But I'm just letting you know, with this powerhouse lineup, you can have 2 powerhouse planes as well. But you don't have to take this one. As I said, take the Polk or take one of the TARs. Then the Arado. The Arado doesn't have any guns on it, but it has 3 bombs. It has 2 500s and then a single 500 in the center. You get 2 drops. It's one of the most deadly CAS machines in the game, in my opinion, just because you are able to knock out at least an area of tanks very, very quickly, and we're not at the BR yet where you have a ton of radar-guided AA. The wonderful thing about 6.7 is that you don't get into 8.0, and 8.0 is when the radar-guided AA stuff starts. I suppose with the Saddam, it's slightly changed, but the main thrust at this moment, since not a lot of people will have ground to the Saddam, is the fact that, you can still use this with immunity. It's a fast bomber with a lot of potential of getting a lot of kills. The only issue is obviously once you've done with your bombs, you need to go back to the airfield rearm and get back up, which is, not too hard to do. There is an argument for using the 5.7 lineup for the Germans, the 5.7 Tiger E, Tiger H1, Panther D, and also the new Panther A. I think this lineup is solid as well. The only thing I would say is if you have, ersatz, the Tiger or the VK4, well, mainly ersatz and the Tiger, but also the VK4501, you could run them too. in a 5.7, but the 5.7's good. I think if I'm in 6.7s and I get up tier to 7.7, I think it's a nicer up tier than a 5.7 into a 6.7, so that's how I see it. The 5.7 lineup as well, you can run the TARs and the Focke-Wulf Ds or the BF-109K4s. Overall, once again, really good lineups. The next one, let's just fix that a little bit, since that seems to be absolutely balked. There we go. So, the next lineup is my 5.3 Soviet lineup. Now, a lot of people will be like, well, why are you taking 5.3? What is so important about the 5.3 BR? Why aren't you taking the 5.7 lineup? You know, you got the IS-2, the T30 so on and so forth. Well, with the 5.3 lineup, I can't get into 6.7. And one of the biggest issues for me with the 5.7 lineup for the Soviets is that they get up-tiered into 6.7 quite a lot, and they are quite... well, let's just say it's not pretty, I think is the best way of putting it. It doesn't feel good to use, it doesn't feel good to play. So, with the 5.3 lineup, you get a slightly worse version of the 5.7 lineup. You get the T30 which is pretty much the same as the T30 in how it works. You get the IS-1 with the 85mm. Make sure you go Bush Wookiee on this thing. It does have a frontal weak spot, but the frontal weak spot is... I mean, it's not really a frontal weak spot, but people will know where to shoot you if you don't go Bush Wookiee, and which is either here or here, depending on, you know, how you're angled. And then the SU-85M, which is a really strong tank destroyer with the D5S cannon. You can swap the SU-85M out for the PT-76, which is right here. You could also swap it out for another tank destroyer if you want, but I would personally just say chuck in the PT. You could even throw in the KV-85 if you felt like it, if you didn't want to run a case tank destroyer. On top of this, the planes that you have, the IL-10 1946, unfortunately, once again, you're kind of having to downgrade your CAS in this point, because of 5.7, the TU-2 is present, and the TU-2S is a monster at CAS. You know, 1,000 and then 2 500s, or 1,000 and 2 250s, and also guns to back it up as well. For me, since I'm running 5.3 though, I've got to take the IL-10 1946. Definitely not as pungent as the TU-2, but not useless. The one great thing about the IL-10 1946 is that it's not just an aircraft which is dedicated to attacking. It can also defend itself with the 20mm turrets, and it also has 4 forward-firing 23s, so you can deal with enemy fighters after firing, you know, your secondary weapons off. The next one is the I-185 M71. The reason why I take this personally is just because of the ammo count. There are a bunch of fighters around the 5.3 area, the Yak-9P, the LA-7B-20, the LA-7 even, or the Yak-3P, which are all wonderful fighters. But for me, the reason why I take this as a 5.0 is because it has 560 rounds of Shavak, and also it's quite maneuverable really at any speed or altitude. So I'd say this to round off the lineup. The one thing I would mention is if you're a veteran player, you could throw in the 5.3 Type 65 in this lineup, which would replace the SU-85M. You could also throw in the KV-220 and the TV, if you wanted to be, you know, an absolute arsehole. But those options are there for you, and I would say that's also a powerhouse lineup if you want to take 5.7s. So moving on to Britain. Britain is a 4.7 lineup, and the reason for this mainly is because the British guns, well, you get a nice mix at 4.7. If you're trying to do like these challenges, I'd say staying away from Britain's a good thing because their guns maim, they don't really kill. So you'll get a lot of assists, but you won't get, you know, a ton of kills, or at least compared to the other nations. But anyway, 4.7 lineup, Sherman Firefly, add-on armor, doesn't really make that much of a difference, but the main thing is that its gun is very powerful. It puts big holes in anything, really. A lot of good armor penetration for 4.7. You still do have to aim it, though, but overall, this thing is just a gun platform. Don't worry about its armor too much. Make sure to get the first shot off first, and understand it's not that fast, but it is fast enough to get into a position to hold down. This is a very defensive vehicle. The Churchill Mark 7, depending on what BR that you're at, if you are at your BR or lower, this thing is a tank, and it is able to just kind of walk across across the battlefield, and it is really fun to use in that way. But if you get up tiered into 5-7, don't even bother taking this thing out as a second spawn. Well, actually, the way I see it is this would be my primary spawn if I was at 4-7 or lower. If I'm higher than that, this is my secondary, maybe even tertiary spawn on the tanks, just because the only thing it really has going for it is the armor, you know, the 152mm on the turret and on this flat bit. There's 30mm here, and also 139 here, so they're not going through that. But for me, you know, if that armor doesn't work, then this Churchill is completely useless. If it does work, though, it's a lot of fun. Now, the last one is the Crusader AA Mark 1. This is not a very good AA, but what it is good at is killing tanks. So you can do kind of a dual role with this thing. You have, you know, the APT, 76mm a pen, you can get around the side of stuff. The Crusader chassis is pretty quick, so therefore if you use it in that way, you can get yourself some kills, which is lovely. If you have the Sherman Firefly, the Firefly Scorpion, I would actually throw this in instead of the Crusader AA Mark 1, but you can also take the Avenger if you feel like. I just really do not like the Avenger. It's the turret is too slow, it has no armor, you know, planes can gun it down, and since it's generally a second or third spawn vehicle, for me, it doesn't work. Maybe if I take it as a first spawn, but it doesn't work. If you want to go 5-0 and you have the AC4, that works as well. You know, Comet, AC4. You could even maybe throw them in with the Challenger at 5-3 if you really had a death sentence. But I would say the 4-7 lineup is the strongest in tanks for the British, if you want to get these stuff done. If you don't want to... if you want to do another lineup, I would highly suggest the 6-7 one. So Cent Mark 3, Carnarvon, Tortoise, or FV4005, depending on, you know, which one you like. The Cent Mark 3 is a wonderful vehicle, very good in War Thunder, good stabilizer at its BR, and also its gun doesn't always do what you want it to do, but because of the better reload than most, it will eventually be able to kill whatever you're shooting at. The Carnarvon is exactly the same. I mean, these two tanks are basically the same. The Carnarvon's just a bit slower and heavier. Still has basically the same weak spots, so... yeah, maybe you can catch somebody out for that. But anyway, let's go back to the 4-7 lineup. Unfortunately, the 4-7 planes are not the best from the British, because the only one that you really have is this one, the Spitfire F Mark 9C. And this is a gift plane, which you won in a tournament. So this is already out of the running, because a lot of people won't have that. So let's have a look at the other two offerings. The first one is a Spitfire F Mark 9. This is a 4.3 machine, has 240 rounds of 20mm and 7.7s, 1400. This is an incredibly maneuverable plane. It has decent speed behind it. This is the perfect plane you want in ground realistic if you want to kill other fighters. Maneuverable at you know, slow and medium speeds and also low altitudes. You're able to turn on pretty much anything that you want to. It does have enough cannon rounds to be able to get your 4 kill criteria. The only issue with it is, you know, you're going to have to aim really well, and also you can't really influence the ground battle at all. The only thing you have is one 250 pounder, and I would actually advise you against taking that just because of the extra weight. Instead, just go fighter mode, try and be the counter to the cast that is coming in around the 4-7, which will be, you know, a lot of decent aircraft. The next one's the Typhoon. The reason why you take the Typhoon is because of its secondaries. Basically, with two 1,000 pounders, you can guarantee killing something on the ground, and then afterwards, since you have 420mm, you can deal with lightly armored stuff, or you can deal with other aircraft. The way I use the Typhoon Mark 1BL is basically go into the map, spawn in, look for a target, bomb it, and then go switch straight to fighter mode, try and deal with all of the enemies that are around. And that seems to work pretty well for me in the Typhoon. But if you want to just go straight anti-CAS, you know, you go the Spitfire F Mark 9. Out of all of these lineups, I would say the British one is the weakest, but it is still very fun to play. The Japanese have to go 7-0, and the reason for this is because of this monstrosity. The hull reproduction is such a fun vehicle to use, and its gun, the 105mm Type 5, is great. Now, over recent times, it did get nerfed. Its ridiculous reverse got taken away, and also people have figured out where to shoot the damn thing, but it is still a powerhouse if used correctly. If you angle it, you know, its armor is still really good, its gun is still great, its survivability is wonderful because it has a 6-man crew. Overall, it's still a powerhouse machine with a lot of speed behind it and a lot of armor. If you are able to get down tiered, you know, it'll take over a game. Simple as that. So, since we're taking this as a first spawn, we do have to make some concessions, and the concessions are the other vehicles. So the first one's a Type 61. This is just a worse pattern, the pattern is already pretty bad. So if you have this as a stock like I do, it's pretty much useless until you get this Heat FS shell. And also, it's just a rolling paper shell with a 90mm in it. So the survivability of this isn't very good, so I wouldn't even take this as a secondary spawn. This would be my tertiary spawn when I'm trying to secure the battle. The Type 60 SPRG would be my secondary spawn after the hull reproduction. If I got up tiered into 8.0 though, it would be my first spawn. And the reason for this is because it's a great scout. The recoilless rifles work very well at killing things, and on top of it, you can basically just park it anywhere and be able to spot for your team and try and get that initial advantage to win the match, which is, you know, this thing is not going to get you your 6 kills on a battlefield. That's what your hull reproduction is there for. So the Type 60 is there to make sure that you win the battle with your team in an up tier. Overall, it's a really fun vehicle to use. I would highly recommend it if you haven't. Also, one of the great things about 7.0 is you can bring your R2Y2s. Now, if you don't know what an R2Y2 is, it's another abomination, but it's a really good abomination. 4 30mm in the nose. It also has one 800 kilo bomb on it, and there are 3 R2Y2s that you can take right here. 2 of them are 7.0, so you can take 2 of them if you feel like it, or you could just take, you know, 1, because generally it's good enough. So this is the epitome of, I'm going to drop the bomb and then I'm going to come and screw you up. It's great at killing other aircraft. It's also with its 30mm. If we have a look at the penetration on the ground target spells, it's 23, so it's not the best. But if you use it to, you know, the 800 kilo to kill something, and then go and kill other aircraft, you're going to do a really good job in the R2Y2. It's a really fun plane to use, and the cannons are great at killing aircraft. The other one is the Kicker. Kicker also carries a bomb, stock as well, so if you only have a stock Kicker, you can still get the 500 kilo on it. 500 kilo is once again good enough to pretty much kill everything. I've had a few issues in the past with it, just because its explosive mass isn't the best, but if you can master it, it is a free kill with a fighter, which is easily able to kill whatever you come across. It doesn't have a ton of ammo on it, but it's still, you know, good enough. I would still say the R2Y2 first spawn, and then if everything else has died, you bring out the Kicker just to try and secure the win. The Italy tree, I haven't really ground through it enough yet when it comes to the army side of things, but looking at it, I would say the 6-7 lineup is going to be a hell of a lot of fun, so I would take the 6-7 lineup. If not, I would take the 4-0, so you take the Beretta 501, you take the 7534 M43, and then you take the M42 as your rank 3 lineup. This means that at 4-0, you can bring along some other stuff. The G55 Soto Siri. You can also bring along the P108B if you feel like it, and also the new SM91 if you have it unlocked. So there are a lot of options for Italy. Unfortunately, I haven't got to them yet. I will be using this event to grind out them, just so I can play them for you guys. The French are another 4-7 powerhouse. This lineup might be one of the best in the game at 4-7. I think I would actually say it is. This is just, you know, the US lineup on steroids, and the reason for it is because of the addition of this machine here, and also the AA. So, first of all, Jumbo, once again. The Jumbo for the French is exactly the same as the American one, so this is your primary spawn. This is the get in, get out machine. Once again, only one front down to weak spots, cover it in bushes, and you'll be grand. The secondary spawn for the French might be one of the best secondary spawns in the game. This is the M4A4 SA50, has a 75mm SA50 L57 on it, and what is amazing is that it pens 180 at 10 meters. 180 for a 4.7 vehicle. You chew KVs for breakfast, you also chew jumbos for breakfast, and you only have a 9-second reload. What the hell is going on with this machine? It's crazy. But yeah, this is easily the best secondary, apart from maybe the Tiger 2H that I run, and it's amazing to use. If your team gets overrun by heavies, the M4A4 is there to clean that up. If you don't get overrun by heavies, it still can clean up whatever it touches. The AP round is amazing on it. You can play defensively, you can play slightly aggressively. It's a wonderful machine. The tertiary spawn at 4.7 is the AMX-13 DCA-40, fast-firing 40mm gun. Doesn't have radar-guided AA or anything like that, but what it does have is, if we go to modifications, it has an APT round, which once again pens 76mm. So you're on a fast chassis, the AMX-13s, you have a good gun, you can either kill aircraft with this fast-firing gun, or you can maim a lot of tanks to the side. Overall, this is a great addition to the 4.7 lineup. The planes are a little bit of a letdown, but they're still good enough. The P63C-5 Cobra, or King Cobra, sorry, the American plane, which is also in the French tree, 3 500-pounders, so you can kill 2 targets by dropping the outer ones first and then the inner one second. So you can kill 2 ground targets on the ground, and then the P63 is a wonderful fighter after that. Very powerful engine, very fun to fly, it feels very maneuverable to use, and generally it just feels nice to use, I think is the best way of putting it. It feels very balanced at whatever speed you're at, and generally it is incredibly maneuverable, which is 2 traits that you need in Tank Realistic to do well. On top of this, I take the VB1002. Doesn't really matter which VB you take. There's 2 of them in the tech tree right here. They're both pretty much the same. You could swap it out for F6 F5N or an F6 F5 if you wanted. The reason I just take the VB10 is because I think it's better at just killing fighters and killing CAS, since a lot of stuff you will face will be either heavy or, heavier than usual. They won't have the maneuverability that they can normally use in realistic battles to get away from the VB10, so the VB10 can clean them up pretty quickly. That's basically why I use it in this game mode, but you can, use it in others. So those are my lineups that I'm going to be using for this event. Should be a hell of a lot of fun. I gotta love the 4.7, 6.7, 5.7s, or 5.3s, sorry. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, hope you enjoyed the explanations, and as usual, I'll catch you next time.